Hello and welcome to your advanced USANA webinar. My name is Jared Krebs. I'm coming at you live from San Antonio, Texas, and we have a very special guest that's going to share his USANA story for you today. But before we introduce him, I want to remind you of 10 things to take while building your USANA business. My name is Jared Krebs. I'm coming at you. Echo. I'm sure the echo will be handled right now. So 10 things. Number one, there will be ups and downs, just like anything. Number two, success or failure is up to you. If you succeed, it's because of you. If you fail, it's because of you, not because of the person who invited you to USANA. Number three, the goal is for you to become independent and be an independent leader for your team. Number four, plan your week on the weekends. Do it, review, and adjust. Plan, do, review, adjust. Number five, it's going to take time. It's going to take 1 year to become competent. It's going to take 3 years to build a significant part-time income. It's going to take 5 years to become a significant earner and 7 years to become world-class. And you can do it faster than that, but it's okay if it takes time. Just like anything, it's going to take time. Number six, it takes consistent work and hustle. Consistency is key. Number seven, you're going to have to grow and get outside of your comfort zone and do Facebook Lives, folks. Number eight, mental toughness is necessary for sure. You got to have a good mental game going on. Number nine, the grass is not greener in other companies. I've seen people leave USANA and they go try to build other MLMs. They've never made what they made with their USANA business. Number 10, USANA is a long-term game. So what I love about it is the company is 25 years strong with over $2.5 billion paid to its associates. It's provided me and my wife, Crystal, a full-time income for over a decade, as well as thousands of people all over the world. And I love that because USANA is a great product, it's a great management team, and we don't have to rebuild. We have a company that's for the long term. And the last thing is always to remember that amateurs just sell products, but professionals sell the vision. Make sure you're sharing the entire package of USANA with people. Make sure that your clients are able to get on these webinars and hear these stories as well. And few have done it as good as Executive Emerald Director Tim Tran out of Washington, D.C. He is an awesome friend of mine. I've been watching him grow in the company, and we are honored to have him today to share his story. Tim, welcome to the show. We want to hear your story.
Wow, appreciate it, Jared. Thank you. Wow, that was some awesome tips. That's for sure the things that I kept in mind as we were building our business, for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you have a lot of things going on. You have a really big business, a lot of people that you're helping, and we're honored that you've taken some time to share your USANA story with us. And we want to know what your life was like before USANA. What were some of those challenges that you were facing? Who introduced you to USANA? How did you grow your business? What challenge did you overcome building your business? Because I know that there's all types of things to overcome there. And what is your life like today now that you're an Executive Emerald Director headed to Diamond? And we want to know. So we will probably have you share your story for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back with Q&A for like the last 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. Well, I appreciate it. So, yeah, it's been an interesting kind of journey for the past. We're going up on about 5 years now. And it's been quite an interesting journey. So I personally had immigrated here to the United States in Washington, D.C. Since I was 5. So back in like the early like 91. So I'm 32 this year. So we immigrated here from Vietnam. So back then it was still a third world country. I'm not even sure if it's a third world country now, but coming from a country like that, your parents always tell you to go to school, make sure that you have a secure job. And so as we were growing up, we were always tight for money. Most people come from some type of money. We literally came from like no money. And so as I was growing up and I was trying to make my parents proud, the conventional wisdom was to go to school and get a college degree and then go get a job. And so that's what I did. So I went to school, graduated college, and then I just got a job. And so the interesting thing about that was when I got out of school, it was around 2008. I worked a couple of about a year or so, but 2008 hit around. And so if anybody's here, listening, and you're in the United States, you remember that time. That was like when the real estate bubble popped. And so when the real estate bubble popped, literally everything else popping. So I got in as a management consultant, like junior level. And I remember during that time, there was so much business that was happening that all completely froze. And so we were in the government contracting business, and it was doing business with the government, but they were sending people over to help build rebuild Afghanistan and Iraq and kind of like all those countries, because I think we were coming out of an economic kind of like bottom out of those countries, because we were in that war for a little bit. And so I remember during that time, there were so many people making ridiculous amount of money because they're sending people over there. They're trying to help rebuild the infrastructure. And I remember there's people that were like 35 to maybe like 40 years old, and they're making probably anywhere from like $400,000 to $500,000 a year. And because it was in that type of country, the way that they set it up, a lot of it was tax-free because it was in a hazardous country. And I just remember, I was just thinking in my head, I was like, man, that's a ridiculous amount of money. So actually, I was about to be sent over to that country to be able to kind of work. And I think they were about to pay me like $180,000 or something ridiculous to be able to go over there and do it. And so I just remember like everything that was happening. So when the economy crashed, everything stopped, like contracts stopped, everything stopped. And so we went from probably, I think it was like around 150 people down to 40 people in a matter of 2 weeks. Like they literally let everybody go. The government stopped paying. The contract just sort of just was on freeze. And I remember, I just remember the transition that a lot of people had to make. And so when they lost their job, they had mortgages, they had families, they had, like people were putting their kids through private school. And one guy in particular, I got, we developed a close friendship. And I remember he came in that day, they let him go, and he kind of had to take all his stuff. And I saw him walk out. And if you ever saw somebody who's built kind of like their career in this one path, and all of a sudden things just took a bad turn, and they lose like hopelessness. Like I remember specifically at 22, looking at somebody and thinking, wow, like he literally doesn't know what he's gonna do next. Like he has no options at this point. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like there has to be a way where I would never put myself in that position again. Or I would never put myself in that position because I'm learning from somebody else that's going through it right now. And so, I still kind of continued working because that's kind of what I knew. And so that's what I was encouraged to do. But as I started to work, I realized that I wasn't happy. I realized that, there's people that were climbing my career in management consultant who were working 60 to 80 hours a week. They have young families. They don't really have time to spend with their family because they're climbing the corporate ladder. And I remember just thinking to myself, I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life, especially if I want to spend time with my family. And so moving forward, I just started to think, okay, it's like we have to find a different way. And that was always in the back of my mind. And so I got to a point where I was working so hard, and I just came home exhausted. I think I passed out. As soon as I got home, like around like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night every single day. And then I would be so tired that I would just be like, let me just take a 15-minute nap, and I wouldn't wake up until 3 a.m. And then it would be like this ridiculous cycle all over again for a couple of years. And so I got to a point where I said, okay, like I need to do something different. And as soon as I said that, my dad, he had like kind of like a routine yearly checkup, and he had some issues that was kind of concerning for the entire family. And so at that point I said, you know what, like I need to, one, focus on my own health. Two, I need to focus on kind of helping my family get better and kind of changing the entire lifestyle for our family. And so I quit my job for a year. At that point, that's when I went on this like whole eat, pray, love thing. So we went to, or like I went to Tony Robbins' seminar, and that led me all the way to his seminar on life and wealth in Fiji. And so he has a resort called Namali in Fiji. And so that's actually where I met my then girlfriend, Helen. And we started to just kind of talk. We didn't date, but then a year later, after that event, we met each other again at another Tony Robbins event in Chicago. And so that's when we started to connect. And so during that time, she introduced me to like USANA. She told me about the product. She told me about like why we need to eat supplements. We were talking about just all these different things that that really resonated with me because of the journey that I was on and sort of everything that's happened in the past years to that. And so when that happened, she told me, it's like, hey, there's a business side to this. And I said, nope, I know it's network marketing. You don't need to tell me it's network marketing. I was so anti-network marketing. I just had like a very negative thing about network marketers and how they were pushy, and they're people that don't know how to make money, and all these different things that was so untrue. And so it was just really bad about what I thought about network marketers. But she tricked me into going to a USANA convention that was in Hong Kong. So it was the Asia Pacific conference in Hong Kong. And that's when she was like, hey, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good time. Just come there. It's gonna be like another Tony Robbins event. It's like personal development. And so I went over there and had a great time, and something had changed when I went there. That's when I understood that network marketing was actually a profession. There was people out there that were in professional jobs, that were doctors, lawyers, accountants, like all the white collar jobs, as well as housewives and kind of like all the spectrum in between. There were people that were succeeding and actually making money in this. And it wasn't just little money. They put their mind to it, that it was actually like big checks. And so at that point I made a decision. I said, there's something that I'm not seeing. My opinions of this profession is untrue, because there's something that's here that I'm not seeing. So I made a decision to start to learn about the profession. And then so that journey kind of started taking us on a path. So Helen started the business first, right around that time. And so she's kind of started building as I was learning. And it was an interesting process, because as she started to do this business, I felt kind of compelled to grow with her. And so I actually think that part of the business, or part of the reason why we got together and got married, was because of USANA, because of all the personal development and sort of the things that we had to grow as a kind of like a couple back then, to be able to kind of understand how we communicate. And so I was so at that point, she started doing the business. I went back to get a full-time job, because I had to figure out a way to earn income. But USANA started to become more serious for me, because I started to realize, like, if I went back and got a job, things are that memory of the guy losing his job out of nowhere was still in my mind. It was still fresh in my mind. And I still remember that I said, like, I can't do something where I'm going to trade time for money. And so I started to get more serious. Helen started doing the business. I started to help her. And then, so when we finally got married and we had a child, she already had a goal director income. She had an income that she was able to build. And so she wasn't strapped for cash. And so I felt compelled to start to figure out a way where, okay, now the time is starting to tick, because I don't want to lose all that years with my children. So there's a sense of urgency to do something about USANA. And so we started to get really, really serious about it. We started to really dive deeper into the business. I remember specifically for her, I got to a point where when we made a decision, so I'm gonna back up a little bit. We never had a wedding. We never had a wedding. We never had like a whole bachelorette party. When we got married, we said, okay, like, let's focus like all our savings that we have right now into creating something for the next couple of years, so that it'll be so worth it that, we can do whatever we want. And so it was sort of a decision for us to put the kids first, and then kind of put our future. And then we pretty much put all our eggs in one basket when it came to USANA. And then so when we decided to do that, My son around that time was born. We started to kind of work with some of our leaders, but we decided that because of the momentum and the things that were happening, that I was going to go back to one of our, I guess, areas of significance when it comes to building the business, and that happened to be in Taiwan. And so when we came back and we started to build the business, I decided that, hey, I'm going to go back on the road and we're going to work with some of the key leaders that we already have, and we're going to just start to develop it. So at this time, it was only a goal director income. And so when we went into, so we made a decision that when Zach hit 1, I was going to go back and we're just going to start to build a business and really kind of take it to like the next level. And by the way, at that point, we didn't really have like a stable gold income. I don't even think we just hit gold. Like we didn't have a stable gold director income, but definitely there was a residual side of that came in. But we had some savings where I could have gone and we could have built a business. And so I went to Taiwan and we were just like, look, like everything's is like all or nothing at this point. So when I got to Taiwan, we had some key leaders that we started to develop relationships with all over and more deeper relationships. So we went hard for about 6 months. Like, I mean, like every single day, like when I got there, I networked with all the key people in our organization. And so we just ran really, really, really hard for about 6 months. And so to give you an idea, that was probably about 3 to 5 presentations on average a day for a good 6 months. And so all the accolades that we have 3 years later came from just like that group, or a majority of that group, where the leaders start to understand the vision of kind of what Jared talked about, the vision of USANA, what this business can offer somebody. And then people started to develop in their maturation of their leadership abilities. So we were able to start to create sort of this residual income, but we were able to start to duplicate and build a culture from there. And then I just remember during that whole process, like I got so many no's. It got to a point where you almost start to question, like, are you slightly insane? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're doing something so like every single day and you're not getting the result that you think that you should be getting, considering like everything that is kind of put on the line. And I just remember thinking, I was like, man, this is bananas. Like I wonder if other people are experiencing the same thing. And so we started to talk to some of our mentors, and you know, they had some crazy stories that were very similar to this. Now I'm not saying that everybody had to go like this, but we were so convinced that this business could have helped people with their health and just sort of the vision of what Dr. Myron Wentz was trying to do, and just sort of all the success that people before us had. Like we just decided, like, this is it. And so I remember 6 months of just straight work. And we were building culture, and we were duplicating. We picked up some leaders, but it got to a point where right around Chinese New Year's. And so if you guys know anything about Chinese New Year's, you know that like Chinese people don't work during Chinese New Year's. Like it's almost like a whole month stretch where people don't do anything. And so I just remember like it got to a point where like I started to slow down and we were getting nervous. But then when I started to get to Chinese New Year's, we had I got to a point where I was doing presentations to just try to like cram it in before people left for Chinese New Year's and back to their hometown. There was a stretch where I had like 15, maybe 20 no's. And at that point, like I was doing it so often where I started to think like, why are people saying no? Like it wasn't my presentation skills. It was just, why are people saying no? And so it started to affect me psychologically. And it got to the point where I thought, again, like, is it worth it? Is all this stuff worth it? If I'm not good enough? Like I've been doing this for 6 months every single day. Am I not good enough? And so that kind of, as soon as the 15, so that stretch of 15 no's, Chinese New Year went in, our points just went down for a little bit for that 1 month. People started to come back, and we started to kind of ramp up again. And so when people started to come back, people were excited, they were refreshed. And so again, I went on sort of like a presentation thing again. And I remember when I got back from Chinese New Year's and we started to actually like go full force again. There was a stretch where I got like 20 yeses. Like every single presentation that I did, I got 20 yeses. And I was like, this is crazy. Like I wanted to quit like 5-6 weeks ago, but when I got back, like there's a stretch where like no one said no to me, and it got fun. And then what happened right after that was we had 2 people go silver. They were very influential in the team, and so when they hit silver, things like people got excited. People saw the vision. People see that we're having success, and then ever since then, like I don't think we've looked back. I mean, that was I would say that was the turning point, right when we had this major dip. That was the turning point where like the momentum has shifted for us. So we went from around maybe a pretty solid executive goal to now an emerald and almost executive emerald director at this point. So, since then, since we've been kind of building this business, I've been able to, in the process, quit my full-time job. So I'm able to kind of drive my son to school every morning. We have a baby girl that was just born 4 months ago. So I'm able to kind of see her development here while we're working from home and kind of having the flexibility to kind of work from wherever we want. We had strong leaders that we were developing in the process where it got to a level where it duplicated. They didn't really need us anywhere after that. So so that's kind of been our journey. And so we're excited to continue to grow with USANA, and we're excited to kind of just help the U.S. market where we can.
Tim, love the story, man. Wow. I didn't know you went through all that, and you went to Taiwan and you presented like crazy for 6 months, and you went through these stages of like questioning and, what you say, like 15 presentations that were straight no's in a row. And then it died down for Chinese New Year's, and then boom, 20 yeses in a row. Like, and it seems like it always happens after you get tested. Like, I know that that's also been the case with me too. It's like you have that dark night of the soul and you're like, oh, is this worth it? Is it going to work? And then you just keep going and boom, great things happen.
It exploded. So, yeah, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know that there's people on this call that are going through those times right now. And it's like, it really always happens after you're being tested. And that's really, really great story. All right, so let's open it up for questions. We have already a question from Suan Knobloch in San Antonio, and please type in your questions in the chat so that we can get as many questions in our time. So she asks, tell me about your presentation.
Sure.
So how are you presenting, I guess, in the U.S. market? How did you present in Taiwan? Is it the same? Go ahead.
So we started about four and a half years ago. And so people are still trying to figure out social media. So we were actually doing boots on the ground. So we were doing one-on-one presentations and health and freedoms. And when I mean presentations, like that was what I was doing. I was doing one-on-one presentations, and I was also doing health and freedom, like opportunity meetings.
Like home events or like a hotel meeting?
Yeah, it would be more like hotels, but except for it might be like in somebody's business. So we would, talk to business owners, and they'd be like, oh, I have this free period from 2 to 4 when there's really no customers. And so we would just use that space, and we would teach people how to invite to that event.
Okay. So very old school methods. Yeah, and I've been through that too. I mean, I used to have a flip chart even before we used before laptops really were like, before everyone had a laptop, and we would do one-on-one presentations with a flip chart, and then it went to laptop. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like in the U.S. market, we really don't do much of that. We build more on social media. So talk to me about your presentation on social media, your strategy.
So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily changed. And I think this is where the confusion happens, right? Because people are trying to do social selling, and I don't think it really has changed. So I'll give you an example. We can either send this is USANA video, or you can jump on a call, like a Zoom call with somebody and do a presentation over the computer. So the process is still the same, like how you find customers, to how you invite somebody, to how you get connected with them and kind of present that opportunity or the product. I mean, it's still the same. And then, you still have sometimes you bring a you know, like some people call it a sizzle call, some people call it an upline mentor to talk to, a three-way call, wherever you want to do it. The concept of network marketing hasn't really changed. Just maybe the style or the tactic in which you communicate is different.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's definitely been a kind of I don't know, a myth maybe. People think, oh, I don't have to use my three-way call expert or do this or that. Like, no, this is all still classical strategy that really signs people up. Phone, right. Internet, Zoom call. Right. Thank you. Okay, so we have a question here from Phyllis Walker. Do you mostly do social media? Phyllis is in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Hey, Phyllis, great question. So we do social media, but we don't do it in the sense that we tell people about USANA. Like I don't post USANA. And the reason for that is just imagine somebody down the imagine you have a friend and they wanted to sell you, I don't know, like a car or something. And every time you saw them, they're like, hey, like I got this Toyota, or like, hey, I got this Acura, or whatever it is. And they're always kind of hounding you about it. You wouldn't really, like, you're trying to actually avoid that person, right? What I try to do is I just try to show people, like think about how people use Facebook and Instagram. And it's really just a way to connect. And when you connect with somebody, all you're doing is starting a conversation. And so that's the same idea as if you were doing it in person, or old school tactics where you saw somebody on the street, or somebody on the plane, you talked to them and you had a really good connection, you got their phone number. Now I just ask them, hey, like, what's your Facebook or what's your Instagram? And I just connect with them. And then that's sort of the same process as old school. So it's really kind of the same thing.
Love it. Thank you. Next question is from Patricia Ruiz in San Antonio. She asks, how do you go about finding your prospects to invite to presentations?
That's a great question. I get this all the time with our team, especially when they either are concerned about their warm market, knowing that they do network marketing, or they ran out of warm market because they've gone through the list. So, Patricia, one thing I would encourage you to think about is if we're doing this as a business, how would you invite people to a restaurant? Like, how would you invite people to like a traditional business? So think about it like that, because what happens is when you think about prospects, so I'll give you actually an example of what I do. So when we got to Taiwan, or when I got to Taiwan, what I did was I looked at all the leaders and I looked at my spheres of influence. So meaning, like, where do I spend my money? Where do I hang out? What type of people do I like to be around? And all I did was just hang around those types of people. And so for the first about 21 days, I actually just went around and just be in a specific type of environment that was around that group. And so most of the time it was like people that were bilingual. So it was like people that can speak English and Mandarin, people that are maybe from expat communities and they were just kind of in Taiwan because they were working. So I just developed friendship from there, and I started to introduce people to the business. And when I invite them, it was either because it was a product or because it was a business opportunity. So most people, when they ask me, like, hey, what do you do? Like I would actually kind of tell them about USANA. And it was one of those situations where people are like, why are you in Taiwan to do it? And so that was a great conversation starter. So for you, it could be, I think you said you're in Salt Lake City, Patricia? No? Patricia? But anyway, San Antonio. And so for you, people might ask you, what do you do? And so you can just tell your story about what you do, either when it comes to the business or about the product, like you help certain people. So the invite process is the same as if you were to do it old school. And so I would just kind of think about what would you say to somebody if you saw them on the street? Or what would you say to somebody if they were on social media? So for example, if you were to walk into like a network meeting where people were trying to like sell you all these different things, or it was just kind of like a networking event. So most of the time you would go around and you would try to introduce yourself and maybe hand out business cards, right? So, and then what do you do after that? Then you would kind of talk to that, you would follow up and be like, hey, it was good to meet you. And you would try to start up a conversation and build some type of rapport before you invite them to see that this is USANA video, or to sit down with you, or Health and Freedom, or however you're doing it. But now just imagine if now you're taking that onto social media. Now there's so many different groups on Facebook where you can literally go into a Facebook group, which is the equivalent to like a networking event. But now, because you're in front of your computer, you can pop in and out of different groups the same way that you would be at a networking event. And you can still interact with people in that group the same way if you were to introduce yourself, right? But now it's easier because now you can literally scan through each Facebook group and see all the different comments, see how you can connect with people. I mean, there's so many different ways because of social media that makes it easier for you to connect to people. And so it would it's just a matter of just saying, hey, hello, or like, hey, like, I really liked your comment that you were posting about this. Like, I totally agree. And then you just start that conversation that way. But you can do it fairly quickly, popping in and out. And so that's kind of how I would go about doing on social media versus if I did like sort of like the old school way.
Yes, thank you so much. That's great advice. Those private Facebook groups are great. Like, I like how you equivalent that to like a networking event for that topic, right? If it's a salsa dancer networking group, that's the group, or a whatever group, a dad's group, a baseball group, whatever, right? So yeah, it's so nice that you don't even have to go anywhere, and you can make all these connections, and that's phenomenal. Thank you. She says, awesome, that's great. You confirmed some things for me. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
All right, Tim. Well, it's been phenomenal. We have a few more questions we don't have time to get to that are on the USANA Fit Family Facebook Live. Could you maybe go and answer those after or sometime later in the day? Because you have great stuff. I just want to ask one last thing. What advice do you have for all the associates that are going to watch this recording, the ones that are on live, wherever they're at in their business? What's that one thing you want to end with to make an impact?
Don't stop reading. Or audiobooks.
Or audiobooks. Okay.
I would just, and I'll make this very quick. Like, everybody always tries to seek out mentors, and you may not maybe be able to have either the time or the financial resources to go out and seek those mentors. But what they do is that these people who have value, and they've kind of have this almost like an urge to create their own legacy, is they're able to sit down, consolidate their thoughts, and put it into a book form. And because of that, you're literally having a conversation with every single person that has ever been influential. So Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, I mean, all the greats, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins. I mean, all these people have put thought into a book, and you're literally reading their thoughts. It's like having a mentor for $10. And so I would just encourage you to never stop reading, because you're going to have conversations with these types of mentors if you don't have the financial resources to be able to go out and actually connect with them in person. So I hope people spend at least 15, 20 minutes a day to read every single day.
Whoa, boom, huge advice. That is so awesome. I completely agree. I mean, come on, Jim Rohn has passed away many, many years ago, and you listen to Jim Rohn recordings, it's like you're spending time with Jim. Yep,
it's exactly it.
I listen to Abraham Hicks every single day, and like at least 30 to 40 minutes, and it puts me in this mindset. To see Abraham Hicks is like $400, and it's only like once a year they come to my city, if that.
Right.
You know? So it's like, but every single day I hear that stuff. So yes, that's great advice. Thank you, Tim. Well, this has been a phenomenal call, very enlightening. It was great hearing your story. Thank you again for your huge heart for helping the USANA family. And everybody, let's go ahead and unmute the lines and say thank you, Tim, and have an awesome day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Have an awesome day.
Thank you, Tim. Have a great day.
Thank you, Tim. Have an awesome day.
Okay.
Thank you. Have an awesome day.
Thank you.